Here we are. I'd like to call this meeting of the EDC to order. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Sure, Sherry Boye,
Yes.
James Ellis.
Yes.
Archie
Here.
McKee is absent, Melissa Mills.
Yeah.
Nate Manette is absent, Clyde Rabideau is absent, Nick Russell.
Yeah.
Okay.
There being a quorum, then we'll move on to number 3, public comment. Any public comments? There being none, we'll move on to number 4, the approval of previous meeting minutes of July 10th. Motion please to accept. Moved by Nick, second. Melissa. All in favor of approval of previous meeting minutes of July 10th, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Ayes have it. We assume there are no committee reports. That being the case, then we'll move on to number 6, treasurer's report. Paul?
Pretty much, nothing too different. With the EDC, the one thing that, kind of just want to bring to people's attention is and I'll use an example. One is, our involvement with grant recipients, and in the past, with some of the people that preceded Rachel, there were situations in which invoices, for grant client might have been paid, and we should have stopped recovery. Because it's ultimately the client or the grant client's responsibility. I have to give a lot of credit to Rachel, because as reimbursement requests go into the state on these grants, even some of the ones from like 1, 2, or even 3 years ago, she's done a great job with her due diligence and researching everything. And last year, for instance, we recovered $17,000 in invoices that one of our grant clients had. So in essence, there was almost like a bridge loan. It was a 0% bridge loan that we were doing. And so with the investigation that I've done, Rachel's done, Jeremy's done, that and Rachel has built out on all of those past grants. And now going forward, I'm going to use again Flatley Reed as an example. The Flatley Reed contract looks very big, but most of it is recoverable. And so, for instance, what's the first? Is it environmental? Yeah. So Flatley Reed does an environmental. A grant client approaches us, they have to do an environmental. That's part of the grant requirement. And so what we did is we upped our fee, I think it was last year, to cover some of Rachel's costs and to cover the environmental fee. So I think the fee is $1,500 now, and that covers the environmental. That's a Flatley Reed bill. So it does come in and shows up as an expense, but we're reimbursed from it through the collection of fees. And then Flatley Reed had problems in getting the clients to cooperate on, let's say, an asbestos study. And so Flatley Reed did not want to become a bill collector chasing these people down. So we pay the invoice for Flatley Reed to them for other things that they need to do in regards to the grant client. And then Rachel uploads it. We have a program that's called Monday. And it's a multi-purpose tracking system. And there's one thing that's specific to accounts receivable. She uploads the invoice, we pay it. And she uploads the invoice, and then I turn around and I bill the grant recipient within a week or two of us paying that. And it's worked very effectively, and I've actually transitioned it into a complete process where I now track other accounts receivables through it. And I think to date, we probably processed maybe 14 accounts receivables through it, and everybody's paid except one but that was just a recent transaction, so. And then with Flatley Reed, we might actually leave them something solely for ourselves, and that's an expense that we bear. But for the most part, these are invoices that pass through us that we get reimbursement for. Nobody really clearly understood that before, and even I, when I first got here, there's a lot to figure out, moving parts with these grants and different things, and so now that we have a better handle on that, it's allowed me to fine tune the budgeting as far as like, you know, these other consulting services that we get involved in. Just wanted to, you know, make sure people understood how to handle Flatley Reed, because it is probably the largest vendor that we deal with. The other thing that the budget reflects is, we've received one grant from New York State. Jeremy, we should be hearing from the federal government on another grant in relation to covering our SEDS costs. That's the annual, or the
Comprehensive Economic Development
Thank you.
Strategy update.
And so, I think right now, we have 90,000 in planned revenue. It's work that probably would start if we get the federal grant, start towards the end of the year, but primarily take place in 2025. And, I think right now I have it budgeted that our expenses on that would be about 100 or 110,000. Because the grants don't cover the full amount. There's a little bit of a shortfall.
That's the south we're talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies. Did you let the budget?
I'm like that.
This is.
I have one.
Oh, you have the EDC one? Okay, all right.
I have, that's the other one.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry about that, everybody. Oh, you'd like one too, Karen? It's okay. The other thing that, you know, through a lot of conversations with Jeremy and Rachel, and the whole notion that, okay, again, along with the premise that, you know, we want to become a sustainable, permanently sustainable, you know, we don't have to worry about year to year. We talked about, you know, last year about doing, fee for service. And so, one of the things that we do now is, we've reached out to, well, actually have an agreement with, Pendragon Theater. We have one with,
Company Lake Arts
something like that,
and with Play 80K.
right, where they need help. They're not getting a grant for us. But they need help at working with their grant, administering it and all of that. And so we basically have our professional hourly rate that we charge them for our services, and we usually enter into an agreement for an amount not to exceed, and if they need more beyond that agreement, then we renegotiate. But that's basically what's reflected under professional services fees, that 30,000. The other thing after, you know, working with these programs for now, you know, 2 to 3 years is a better handle on grant administration fees. So, and we just discovered recently through more digging with, you know, different people that we're entitled to more fees than we originally thought we could collect. So what happens is, let's say on the micro enterprise grants that we've applied for, they're $600,000 grants. And
200.
I'm sorry, right, 200 times 2 would be 400,000. And we're entitled to 20,000, I believe, on each of those. So total grant 400,000, 360,000 will go out the door. We get to keep 40,000 of that if we justify and back up the costs related to that, which we are now able to do at a greater rate than what we used to do in the past. So that's the 60,000 figure that you see there. The carry, you know, seems to be doing very well in Saranac Lake. I think once we're in the new location and much more modern facilities, I think that could really, you know, even probably go further. But for now, we've left it where it is. And then dropping down into, you know, other income areas. We actually have to separate out, well, obviously you see the loan interest. Loan interest is down because we have the potential for one of our current loans being paid off early. So I had to take that into account and reduce the amount of interest that we'll actually collect next year. But this morning, I just had a knock on my door, so to speak, and had a conversation, and there's a really good potential for a new loan to come on the books that would replace that interest income. But that's not reflected here, but. And then under non-operating revenues, you'll see the 540,000. Basically, this is for the most part, the money that goes out to the grant clients. If you were to look at non-operating expenses on the next page, you'll see down towards the bottom, state grant disbursements, 500,000. Well, first off, on the revenues, 40,000 is the state money we're getting for the SED, so I reported it there. But basically, when the money comes in for these state grant programs, we're just a pass through. We recognize it as non-operating income because we don't make any true money off of it. And then when it goes out as non-operating expenses. That's the way the state wants it recorded. So basically, when I do the budget, if I'm budgeting whether it's $1 million or 500,000 for the revenues, I budget the same amount for expenses. The one thing that, if this is all great, if it all happens in 2025, but some of these grants, will trickle into the next year or could start earlier. In maybe November, or December, because some of these micro enterprise grants for the rail trail might actually be helping us, getting involved towards the end of the year. But this is the most accurate way to kind of project it. But the bottom line is we only get 400,000. Then the expense is only 400,000. So the net effect from the net non-operating should be zero.
I think if we look at the building on the discussion we had with the IDA and the limited options and flexibility for income sources, we've been trying very hard to diversify with the EDC because we have that ability. So there's the loan income, the grant income, and the professional service fees that we're starting to do, which we've never done before, and seems to be really appreciated by those folks because these grants are complicated.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do, and so we're happy to just come in and try to help them. So we're trying to keep diversifying that, and then obviously get to a net zero, which we haven't gotten to yet over the last few years, but we're getting pretty close.
There's basically two ways you grow revenue for this organization: loan revenue from interest or from these fees. And so here's a business decision that we're kind of forced to be made here. Rachel and Jeremy have been working a lot on the micro enterprise. And whenever we have new grant opportunities, all that effort goes into it. I know when we did the downtown DRI for Tucker Lake, Rachel did a great deal of outsourcing. I know when we were trying to use up some funds that we had for Main Street, here in Malone a couple of years ago, she literally was going door to door to tell people, look, we've got this money. So she does an enormous amount of outreach to generate interest, and a lot of time and energy is put into developing strong applications. And so right now, there's about $90,000 in receivables that she needs to bill out for on current and existing grants, which, from my perspective, yeah, I'd love to have it in the bank, but the bottom line is Jeremy and her are already working on the next batch of grants to keep that revenue train going. So, you know, now that the grants are been accepted and all of that, now the focus for her is shifting to getting the money that's currently on the table in the door. And most of that is submissions to New York State for reimbursements. And so, and that's $90,000 that, you know, she has estimated. So I think from a priority perspective, you know, if we don't keep doing that planning for the next grants and all that, and keeping that moving forward, and we just focus, let's say, on just doing, getting the 90,000. You know, we may miss out on a great opportunity down the road that would generate some fee income for us. And so, you know, again, interest income and generating administrative fees for these grants. So that's why it's so important to keep these grants moving and flying through.
Good. Questions?
Does this grant to Franklin County IDA go away if we have the windfall?
Is that the 15,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So what that basically is this, an IDA cannot gift
Right.
services, they can't gift money. And right now, Maria's an IDA for I'm an IDA for the high perform services for the EDC on loans. Maria, for, her time is divided for EDC. And so the EDC, because we can't just do those services for free for them, the EDC has to pay us some money for those services.
you have the revenue or the income, you won't need those inflows from the other end, right?
It's not a matter of needing them, it's a matter of what
The shared services, is that what you call it?
But what county was it?
I don't know.
There was a, the bottom line is we cannot legally just do the service without being compensated. The IDA
Okay.
cannot do the service.
It's for shared services.
Yeah.
Never mind.
And
Okay.
Yeah.
that number is kind of traditional.
Yeah.
I think in the future, our plan is to
Do a formalized contract.
do it more formal and get a more precise amount, almost like a hard.
Yeah, okay.
Right now, it's listed as a grant.
Yeah.
Over time, it's
It's like
something.
a
along
handout,
those
that's what it looks like.
Yes.
But,
It looks like that, but it is,
Okay.
it's,
to
if the
cover
state
those
came in and
costs.
said to us, you know, how are you doing this with
you can
EDC?
back it up. with
We
your-
can say they reimburse us
Yeah, okay.
$50,000 a year for those expenses that we're doing.
Yep.
All right, got it.
Good
Thank
question.
Further questions? There being none, you'll accept a motion for the treasurer's report to be adopted. Nick, second,
I say. A whole bunch of us here.
Sherry. There being no further discussion, we'll accept a vote on treasurer's report. All those in favor of adopting treasurer's report, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Old business.
Done.
There being none, we'll now move on to new business. And it's reflected there as the 2025 budget discussion,
Which we just had.
which we just had. Therefore, could we have a motion? Motion to accept the budget before I go into discussion. By Nick, second. Sherry? Motion's on the floor. Are we, we're at the same position we were with the previous discussion of the IDA budget. You have two options, we can adopt it now, or we can adopt it later. If you're satisfied, we can adopt it now.
We've had enough discussion, but
There being no further discussion, therefore, we'll accept. The vote is in order. All in favor of adopting the 2025 budget, please signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed, nay. By the way, it's hard being in front of them. You gotta make sure everything is done. Is there any need for executive session?
No.
There being none, public comment, number 11. There being none, we'll now move on to adjournment, reminding you the date of the next meeting is September 18, 2024.
Sherry made a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Motion,
like that.
Second,
Second,
thank you, Melissa. And Sherry, thank you.